In the summer of 2003, a quiet town in Pennsylvania would become the center of one of the most bizarre crimes in American history. A pizza delivery man walked into a bank with a bomb strapped to his neck. The world would watch in shock, not only as the story unfolded, but as the truth began to twist into something far darker than anyone expected. This is the story of Brian Wells and the case that would become known as the Pizza Bomber. Brian Wells was not a criminal. He was a man with a job, a routine, and a life that seemed ordinary to anyone who knew him. He delivered pizzas in Erie, Pennsylvania. He had debts, he had problems, he had a family. But he was also someone who could be manipulated, someone who could be forced into a nightmare. On August 28, 2003, Brian received a call that would change his life forever. He was instructed to follow a set of rules. He was told that if he did not comply, he would die. And then a collar was placed around his neck. A collar that was not just heavy, but deadly. The collar was metal, with wires and a small timer. It looked like something from a movie, but it was real. The people who forced it onto him did not want a story. They wanted a victim. Brian was told to go to a specific location, to do specific tasks, to follow instructions. The collar would explode if he tried to remove it, and it would explode if he did not complete the tasks. This was not a robbery. This was a trap. Brian entered the bank. He looked calm, but he was terrified. He handed a note to the teller. The note demanded money, but it also contained strange instructions. A list of tasks, a countdown. The teller could see the collar. The teller could see the fear. But she didn't know what to do. The bank tried to comply. They attempted to open the safe, but the instructions were unclear. The plan was already failing. And outside the bank, the world began to notice. Police arrived quickly. Brian was found outside the bank, sitting on the sidewalk, sweating, shaking. He told the police the truth. He had a bomb. He begged for help. He said the collar was real. He said it would explode. But no one knew what to do. The police had never faced anything like this. Every second felt like a countdown. Every second felt like a step closer to death. The bomb squad arrived. They inspected the collar. They saw wires. They saw a timer. They saw a device that looked like it had been designed by someone who wanted to cause fear. The timer was ticking. Brian was begging. The officers were desperate, and the clock kept moving. Then, the unthinkable happened. The collar exploded. Brian Wells died instantly. The town was stunned. The world was shocked. But the story didn't end there. It only became more complicated, because now investigators had to ask the question everyone was afraid to ask. Who did this? And why? Investigators searched Brian's life. They searched his car. They searched his home. They looked for clues. They found a map. They found notes. They found a list of locations. It looked like a puzzle, but the puzzle was deadly. They discovered that Brian had been manipulated, that he was not the mastermind. He was a victim. And the more they dug, the more the case began to look like a carefully orchestrated plan. Someone had designed this. Someone had planned the trap. Someone had chosen Brian. Two names began to surface. Names that would change the entire case. Marjorie Diehl Armstrong and Kenneth Barnes. Marjorie was intelligent. She was unstable. She had a history of violence. She had a motive. She had a plan. Kenneth Barnes was a friend, a conspirator, a person who would help carry out the scheme. Together, they were suspected of designing the trap, of forcing Brian into a situation he could not escape. But the case was not simple. It was filled with lies, manipulation, and confusion. The trial was a nightmare. Witnesses testified. Evidence was presented. The story became stranger and stranger. Marjorie claimed she was innocent. Kenneth claimed he was coerced. The prosecution argued that they were the masterminds, that they used Brian as a tool. The truth seemed impossible to believe. But the evidence kept pointing to the same conclusion. Brian was not the mastermind. He was the victim. The motive remained unclear. Was it money? Was it revenge? Was it a twisted game? Some believed it was about a stolen money stash. Others believed it was about power. Others believed it was about control. But the real motive might never be fully known, because the case was not just a crime. It was manipulation. It was a psychological trap. And it was deadly. The pizza bomber case remains one of the most unsettling mysteries in true crime history. A man died trapped in a nightmare, and the real truth may never be known. Some believe the case was solved. Others believe there are missing pieces. Others believe the story was more twisted than anyone could imagine. But one thing is certain. The world watched a man die, and no one could fully understand why. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe and like for more true crime cases. And remember, sometimes the most terrifying crimes are the ones that seem impossible to explain.